Hi, this is James, and I'm here with the Oracle Outlook for the week starting June 26th, 2017. This week, I wanted to work with Kipper cards because it's been a while since I've worked with Kipper cards. So the deck that's going to be assisting me for this week's reading is the Mystical Kipper. It is by Regula Elizabeth Fiechter. The artwork is by Trösch, and it is published by AGM. So I have the deck on hand, and I'm going to shuffle the cards. And as I shuffle the cards, I'm setting the intention that I have for every weekly reading that I do. And I'm asking the very general question, what do we need to know for the week ahead? So I'm feeling that will do. I'm going to go ahead and cut the cards and fan them out. And just like I do when I work with Lenormand, I'm going to be picking 5 cards because I do a line of 5. And these 2 cards wanted to come out together. So we have 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I have the card selected. I'm picking up the remainder of the deck so I can put that aside. And so just like I do when I do a line of 5 with Lenormand, I'm going to start with the middle card. For me, the middle card always represents the central issue or what we're being asked to consider focusing on for the week ahead. So the card we have here is Rich Good Gentleman. So Rich Good Gentleman is what's known as a person card. So if you're watching this video, Rich Good Gentleman could be someone who's younger than you. So if you happen to be a woman watching this video, it could be a younger male connected to you. So it could be a son, could be a cousin, could be a nephew. If you're a man, again, same thing. Somebody younger than you could be a sibling. That could also be, if you're a woman, a younger sibling who's male, cousin, nephew, things of that nature. So it could be something pertaining to a younger person. The other thing that I ascribe to Rich Good Gentleman when it's not about a person per se, then this card can be about either something having to do with business or money, because the word rich implies money, so it could have something to do with finances and financial transactions, or it could be about business, and in particular, self-employment, because this usually indicates somebody who is self-made, you know, like the idea of like a self-made millionaire, right? So somebody who is self-made or somebody who works for him or herself. So surrounding cards will give us more information about Rich Good Gentleman, but starting off, we have a situation potentially where it's a younger person will play a central role, or that we're being asked to focus on something having to do with money and finances and financial transactions, or something having to do with business, or something of a self-employment nature or adventure, excuse me. So I'm looking at the image on the card, and the one thing, and I don't think this is a Kipper thing in particular, but for me, because I'm very image-oriented, I'm looking at the image, and there is a young man who's sitting in front of a chessboard, and it looks like he's trying to figure out what his next move will be. So this could be about like maybe strategizing something, planning what our next move is going to be, and that could be again involving something of a financial nature. We're considering what the next move is with that, or something having to do with a business venture. So those are some of my first impressions with Rich Good Gentleman. So like I said before, we'll know more when we look at the surrounding cards. So starting with the card on the far left, we have Pleasant Letter. Then in between Pleasant Letter and Rich Good Gentleman, we have Good Gentleman. Okay. Then on the other side of Rich Good Gentleman, we have Gloomy Thoughts. Okay. And then rounding out the line, we have High Honors. Okay. So like I do when I read Lenormand, what I do is I look at the cards that are immediately flanking the center card. So going with the card on the immediate left of Rich Good Gentleman, we have Good Gentleman. So we have another person card with Good Gentleman. So Good Gentleman can represent somebody who's connected to Rich Good Gentleman. So if we consider the idea that Rich Good Gentleman represents a younger male, Then good gentleman would be somebody who's older than him. So this could be somebody who's like a father, somebody who's like a grandfather, something of that nature. If there is no familial connection, meaning they're not related, then good gentleman could be somebody who is helpful to rich good gentleman. This card always represents somebody who is helpful to some degree to the querent, or in this particular case, the person who is the central issue or the focus. Now, the interesting thing here, if we consider direction, because Kipper is one of those systems that direction is important, we have good gentleman and then we have rich good gentleman. So if you take a moment to consider the dynamics, these are two people who are not facing each other. So this could be where there is a situation between two people and they're not in agreement on it, right? So they're not seeing eye to eye. So it could be going with the idea with rich good gentleman being about business or finance. It could be about an issue that centers on money that the people are not in agreement about, or that it centers on business and the people are not in agreement about. It could also be too, if we go with the idea possibly of a familial thing, a family type of relationship or situation, the fact that these two people are not facing each other can suggest that maybe they are in disagreement, like I said before, or that there is some sort of rejection. The idea of symbolically turning your back on somebody is saying, like, on some level, I'm not paying you any attention, I'm going to ignore you, I'm going to reject you. So it could be working through, if we go with the idea like the rich good gentleman is centering on the idea about the next move, because I said that was part of it, the meaning for me was like planning what the next move is. So you're finding yourself in a situation where you may be experiencing a disconnection, and that reminds me of what I said with last week's Lenormand card reading, because it ended on the challenging card, which was Scythe, about a break, about something being severed or split, or a disconnection, right? So let's say like maybe that is being, picked up in this week's reading to some degree for someone watching this video. So if you experience that split, that separation, that break or disconnection, the fact that these two people cards are having their backs to one another, it's kind of reinforcing that. And so you're saying, okay, now I'm in this space, going with Rich Good Gentleman, of having this other person kind of turn their back on me. And so now I'm planning what my next move is going to be in terms of how I'm going to either choose to react and respond to that, or what's my next move going forward now that this person is no longer a part of the picture, right? So there's that. And going with the idea here, if Rich Good Gentleman is, symbolically representing us, who's watching this video, for instance, then Good Gentleman behind Rich Good Gentleman could represent a person from the past, And so, and each person now is going to be very interesting as we talk about the other cards, is going to be talking about what each one is facing moving forward, right? So there's that with Good Gentleman and Rich Good Gentleman. On the other side, now here we have a challenging card, Gloomy Thoughts. So I tend to look at Gloomy Thoughts. If you read Lenormand, for me, Gloomy Thoughts is like the Clouds card from Lenormand. So if you're familiar with that, Gloomy Thoughts can represent, being in a space where we are now unsure of things, we are uncertain. Gloomy Thoughts represents a lot of negative thinking, and with Rich Good Gentleman, if we take a moment to go with direction, Rich Good Gentleman is facing Gloomy Thoughts. So it could be like, maybe as he's planning what his next move is going to be, going with the chessboard and the chess pieces, his next move is going to be, he may be challenged with being unsure of what that next move is going to be, being uncertain, like he has some idea what he wants to do, but he's uncertain as to whether it will work or not, or that he's just really in a space where there's just a lot of negative thinking going on in his head, right? And the image on the card is not very positive, because it has a man, or it looks like a figure, I should say, not necessarily a man, but a silhouette or a figure who's standing on, the edge of a cliff overlooking the water. So it could just be like, that sense of like, being on edge or being on the edge kind of thing. So it could be like moving forward. It's about like taking a good look at, those thoughts, that kind of energy we're putting into that idea, maybe about what's ahead, the idea of like having a lot of uncertainty about the future, you know, maybe a sense of fear about the future. Fear is negative thought energy, so that kind of thing. Interestingly enough, if we pair good gentleman and gloomy thoughts, now we have good gentleman behind, or I should say gloomy thoughts behind good gentleman, rather. And so that would be like this person, this older person, this more mature person. That's another aspect of the good gentleman. So it could represent somebody who's got a great deal of maturity, a great deal of experience, you know, wisdom gained through experience, putting a negative situation behind him. You know, so for one person in the situation it's positive because putting the energy behind him. In the other sense, for the other person, because the other person's facing it, not so positive. So it could be like one person is leaving a negative situation and the other one may be moving more into it. So I'm looking at that with good gentleman and gloomy thoughts. So now, if we take a look at the outer cards, on the far left we have pleasant letter. Pleasant letter is always a card about communication. And giving the time that this particular deck system was created, communication and correspondence of all forms, right? So it's not, it could actually be an actual letter or some form of written correspondence, but in this day and age, pleasant letter can represent all forms of communication. So this could be, you know, something in the mail, this could be an email, this could be a text message, this could be a phone call, voicemail, all forms of communication fit with this card. Now the implication here with the word pleasant is that it's like good news on its way. So looking at the direction with good gentleman and pleasant letter, the implication here is that this older person is going to be on the receiving end of some good news. And that would make sense given the idea that gloomy thoughts was behind this person, right? So as this person turns around or ignores or puts some challenging situation or challenging thoughts and feelings behind him, then he's on the receiving end of something positive. It's about like leaving something challenging and facing something positive. It could also be too like he's going to be receiving some form of communication, some form of message that's going to be very pleasant or very beneficial to him. So there's that with pleasant letter. Now if we go to the other end, this could give us some more idea about what the news or message with pleasant letter is about. Here we have high honors. This is a very positive card. High honors is all about recognition, right? So if we go with the idea that rich good gentleman can be about business, then this could be about business recognition, career recognition, something like that. It could also be too like somebody who's working, you know, because I said this could be about work or business. Somebody who's working, maybe working towards a promotion of some kind, because high honors represents an elevation of status. So there's that. But this card is about being honored, being recognized, promotion, some sort of career advancement, something of that nature. So now if we pair pleasant letter and high honors, this would be news or messages about some sort of honor, some sort of praise or recognition, some sort of advancement. So there's that with the pairing. Now if we take a moment to consider that high honors is coming at the very end of the line and is next to gloomy thoughts. So here we have the cards like this. So it could be saying too, like there's going to be potential for a turnaround in whatever gloomy thoughts represent. So if there's some sort of uncertainty, if there's some sort of doubt, you know, something of that nature, some sort of confusion, you know, it could be confusion about, you know, advancing, about moving forward. It could be some sort of confusion about some sort of recognition. You know, the idea here, if we go pleasant letter being like, the scenarios being shown to me like the idea about like the checks in the mail or, you know, the letters in the mail. Maybe there's some sort of confusion about a letter or some sort of communication that's been sent, hasn't shown up yet, there's been some sort of delay, or there's some sort of misunderstanding in relation to some sort of message or communication. But then it gets cleared up because honor high honors can represent, you know, again, something being recognized. So there may be a pause where we're unsure or there's some sort of misunderstanding or miscommunication. And again, that would make sense going with the idea that the two central characters in the line are not facing one another. So that, again, that represents a disagreement, but it could also just be a misunderstanding, a misperception, people each seeing something a different way, and that, kind of creates this misunderstanding because each person's looking at something differently within the situation, but then it gets rectified. So I like the idea with high honors at the end. So I'm going to take a moment to sum up the line. So starting with the line, we have pleasant letter starting things off. So pleasant letter, again, is about news or communication, right? And it could be something that starts off pleasantly, or, innocently enough. And then we have two figure cards. We have good gentleman, can represent an older, more mature person. And then we have rich good gentleman, which would be somebody who is his younger counterpart, right? So there could be two things going on. We may have a situation that involves two people for sure, one older than the other. They could be related because of the carryover with the word gentleman, so they could be related. So it could be, a misunderstanding around some sort of communication with two people, one older, one younger, right? It's making me think too, like it could even be, something of a generation gap where the younger person sees things one way and then the older person from another generation sees things a different way, and that's where the disconnect or the disagreement can happen. It could also be more of a familial thing, carrying over what I said last week about a break, a disconnection or a split of some kind, and we're in the throes of it. And it represents like who's going to make the first move, going with rich good gentleman, about, trying to rectify whatever the miscommunication is, whatever the misunderstanding is, whatever it is that's caused the break or the severance, right? So there's that. And it could be more that it's the rich good gentleman who may be taking a pause in that because of gloomy thoughts, which is the next card in the line. Gloomy thoughts is about being unsure, being uncertain, being negative, being confused, like we're in that space. Or it could be like just from either a mental perspective or an emotional perspective, given the air and the water on the card, that we're still on edge, right? Or that we're on the edge of, coming up with a plan. If we go with the idea that the middle card can also represent a planning or strategy, right? And then rounding out the line. So if we're on the edge, we're on the brink of something. High honors comes in at the end and it says honor, praise, recognition. So it's like we come full circle. We move through the gloomy thoughts. Remember, if we go with the idea that gloomy thoughts is like clouds, they will pass. Clouds are fleeting. They're temporary. So it's like we get through the challenge of being on the brink. We get through the negativity, and then we get to the other side. And high honors in that regard is making me feel like we're going to have an aha moment. We may have some sort of revelation. I'm looking at the image on the card. There's a window with light streaming in. So that could just represent an outlook with, enlightenment coming in. We're getting to see it. Again, the window is something that we get to see. So our outlook gets to be changed in a profound way. And on that note, I will end and round out this week's Oracle Outlook. I'm Jameson Mitchell, and as I close, I'd like to thank you for sharing space here with me for this week's video reading, and I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in our next video reading together. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day, and I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week. Take care.